been murdered. All the friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. And the bird said nevermore.
You're listening to the Call Podcast with Brandon and Josh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new edition of The Call. It is a Baltimore Ravens podcast where we talk anything and everything Baltimore Ravens football. Thank you all for listening to us on all of your favorite podcast platforms, especially Overcast. See?
Sorry, I'm taking dude. I'm trying to get my show notes together, and I missed the Overcast. See, I'm all in it. I'm all in.
There we go.
All busy, in, man.
That's later this month.
I'm like Adam Schefter. Like I got to get the breaking news, man. Happy preseason week number 2 to you.
Preseason, here we go. The streak is alive.
It is. Let's not spoil everything. Yeah, not kidding. We have an action-packed show, don't we? And I threw you off with that preview. I thought I'd have some fun with this, man.
You were scaring me. You're tweeting out these weird things about the Jersey Shore and other stuff, and I'm so confused. But you are so excited. The streak continues for the Baltimore Ravens. Week 1 is in the books for the preseason. I mean, like you said, there's too much to waste any kind of time here. So what do we start off with? Do we start off with the situation? I don't know what we're talking about with the Jersey Shore or 24
we do have
or whatever.
We do have a situation with the Jersey, but it isn't the Shore.
Okay.
So we're on video. Obviously, you see the number, right?
I see you got number 7 on.
Look, all right. You know who that is.
Mr. Bowler.
You're not hardcore until you have a Kyle Bowler jersey. I don't care what anybody says. Anything. Look, I got the Kyle Bowler jersey. Those were the days. You want to bash Lamar and everybody all you want. Hey, right here. Number 7, formerly number 8, Kyle, my man, Bowler. Dark days. So I thought I had some fun with it, man. I was like going through my Ravens stuff, and I was like, I gotta wear this.
Now, is this an eBay purchase? Did you buy it while he was an official Raven? Is this an antique? Is this a vintage jersey from your own collection?
Do you one better?
Uh-oh.
It is actually an authentic jersey from the team yard sale.
Really?
Boom, team issued. Holla.
So that's got some Kyle Bowler sweat right in there.
It is a one of a kind.
One of a kind. All right. Very cool.
Yeah, Kyle was one of a kind, and it was some days. Going from that jersey to the other jersey, you probably don't know the reference, but for my Jersey Shore fans out there, obviously I'm a reality TV guy, right? Jersey Shore is number 1. Obviously, Sammy came back this week, like my tweet or X or post, whatever you want to call it these days. There's a reference, and that's why I wanted to throw in 24. And I probably should have mentioned Jack Bauer too. You're familiar with the series 24, right?
I know the series. I've never watched it.
You've never watched it.
Never watched it.
Wow. Well, we need to start you on episode number 1, day number 1. I think, we need to get you hooked. We have a lot of downtime this fall. I think we're going to have to get you hooked on some 24. And it's leading up to the 24th straight preseason win for the Ravens. But before we get to all that, I'll unpack it, and because I have a lot to talk about, and we have a lot to talk about for sure. Reason why I kind of mentioned 24 in the Jersey Shore series, you know the characters, right? The cast of characters from Jersey Shore. So you know JWoww, right?
Right.
Her newest man in her life, right? Zach. Apparently he was 24 on the show originally when he appeared. So the castmates kept calling him 24. It's really funny. So that's kind of why I threw it in there. Ultimately leading to Saturday night with a 20-19 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. How about it? 24 straight preseason wins. And for the record, I love the fact that RG3 sides with us, because these things, we talked about it last show, right? You asked me, you were like, had the conversation of, does it really mean anything? Do you care? Does a streak matter? Like to RG3's point and our point earlier, yes, it matters because it sets the winning precedent. I talked about in the stands, the same thing that echoed what RG3 said. I said, unfortunately, it doesn't translate to regular season wins and success, right? But I've always said it breeds the winning culture. It's amazing because of the high turnover of the different players and teams every year, and the coaching staff is a testament to that. Kudos to RG3 for jumping on that, and obviously he lived through it, right? He played here 2-3 years under that, so he knows what it's like. But dude, how about it, man? What was your vantage point for the game? Where'd you go? What'd you do?
Well, because I was at the Blair Witch in Burkittsville on Saturday, I watched the game on YouTube TV. It's my first time watching a football game on YouTube TV. I have been a cable guy for a while, but
cable guy. How did the YouTube TV go? What's that like?
It was good. I mean, they just you just watch it via the local channel here and just record that. And I thought, we do have a great production staff here with the Ravens, so it was a great production for a preseason game. Jerry Sandusky, always good on the call. It was great to see some of the sideline reporters. The NFL Network even carried our broadcast, so I thought it was good. It was a fun time to watch it. I've missed Ravens football. I think my girlfriend actually said that she thought that the crowd was a little quiet on Saturday night, but I was watching it Sunday as I was, going through the recording. I mean, I thought it was a pretty good crowd. I think they had a good amount of noise going on. It wasn't a sellout, but it was still a good crowd considering it was preseason.
Yeah, it was noisy there. Yeah, towards the end when half the people already left. Yeah, but no, in the beginning of the game was certainly good. I mean, the Eagles fans were vocal. We heard the Eagles chant in the corner of the stadium down there where they were. There was Eagles fans present, but no, it was pretty cool. Glad you guys got to watch the game some fashion. But it was a great environment. It was hot and muggy, but it was great to be down at the bank, the one and only preseason game until September 10th when they do it for real against the Houston Texans at home. They open the season at home for the home end season opener all in one. Again, great to see some familiar faces in my section 517. Just getting the band back together, getting everybody together. We always have a thing in our section. We high five, hug each other. We always say happy season, happy new season or happy season. Everybody's catching up. Let's break this down, shall we? So I'm going to just tell you this, right? Before we break down the Ravens game plan and how they approach things and who emerged, who didn't, I must say from my perspective, I got to share some things with you, man. When I mentioned, and I'm going to unpack the tease, the Tweety Bird. You want to know what all that's about?
All right, let's do it.
The Philly fans, man. It was all fun. It wasn't like no one was a jerk. There was no arguments. But of course, guy right 2 rows in front of us, Jalen Hurts jersey, doing this, turning around, going, "What's up, Tweety Birds?" And it was bad. And I'm like, here these guys go, full force, having fun. But I was like, Philly will Philly. Let me tell you, it was great. The best part about the night, not only that, but the best part of the night, guy right in front of me, right? Brandon, when I tell you this, I'm not kidding. And look, I know the Ravens got the streak and it's intense. And, I'm not saying we all got into it like a regular season game, but this guy was off the rails. This Eagles fan, Brandon, lived and died with every play, and it was pure theater. When I tell you, when Ian Book was playing for them and he was running for his life, the guy would put his hands on his head and he would be like, "Why are you running that way?" And I'm like, this guy was invested. I think maybe he took the streak seriously and was rooting his team hard. We got to beat these guys. This fan, and I'm sitting there, I'm in golf shorts, a polo, my hat. And I'm just sitting back. I'm not even game day gear. And he's 2 seats right in front of me to the right. And I'm just laughing, carrying on, chuckling. Dude, it was great. Every time, huffing and puffing. And then remember at the end when the Ravens threw the pick 6, dude, he was all standing up, clapping. And then they went for 2. And then, of course, I'm giving him some little bit of the dirt. And when he missed it, I was like, guess you should have ran the ball, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And then giving it to him. And then remember the run at the end of the game that could have pretty much sealed the deal for the Ravens. And it was an insane run. Unfortunately, it was called back for a penalty. But given when that first happened, when the play developed and we could have taken it to the house, we're all standing up cheering. I'm like, a ball game. And the fan who was all invested, he's standing up and he's doing this, man. He's doing the flag thing, like ripping the flag out of his pocket. He's standing up looking around like this. And of course, I see the yellow laundry back in the backfield, and the holding call negated the would have been nail in the coffin per se. But, the Ravens ended up victorious. But that's just from that perspective. It was just so fun to be there. And then, of course, when the Ravens were about to seal victory, I'm like looking for the Hurts fan. He moved a couple rows down, but I kept looking for him. Like, guess you don't want to stand up no more, huh? What about the Tweety Birds? And we're like 24 straight. And then, of course, there was a little bit of jawing back and forth. And then we're like, hey, we got 2 trophies. You got 1. How about winning a Super Bowl instead of losing one? Because the Ravens don't know what that's like. So, we got to give it to them because they're coming off a Super Bowl loss last year to the Kansas City Chiefs. So doesn't discount. Eagles had a great season, but this is a new season. It is Ravens season, and 24 straight preseason wins. Next is the Washington Commanders. But even before we get to that, man, what was your overall thoughts here on a preseason victory, 24 straight? How about it, man? What'd you think?
I mean, obviously, it was great to have football back on TV. Absolutely loved having that again. I've missed that environment. I've missed that chance of being able to see the games. It is just such a good time to watch and, kind of zone out for a little bit. I think that the Ravens are on the right track. I don't think this is a perfect team. I think that the questions I still had going into game 1 are still there for me. We really don't know what's going to happen with running back. We'll get into that a little bit later. I think left guard still has some issues, and cornerback is definitely a huge issue still for me and this team. So I think that the Ravens still have some questions that they need to answer. One of them, though, I have to say, we talked about it last week on the show. Tyler Huntley, I think he's solidified his spot at QB2. I don't think he has any worry of what his job is going to be going forward. Now, let me ask you this. On that same note, Tyler Huntley, QB2. Will the Ravens carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster this year? Because we know Lamar and his issues with injury, and Tyler Huntley also has a history with injuries. And even though he only played a quarter in this first preseason game, he did have to come out for a little bit, and there was a potential tweak of a hamstring. Everything seems to be okay, but he did have to leave the game for a little bit, and it was only 1 quarter. Do you think that the Ravens will potentially have 3 quarterbacks on the roster just as, a safety net, if you will, if needed?
Yeah, I think they will. Only because of the track record of the quarterback position being injury prone right now. Lamar Jackson, yes, they have to carry 3. I don't trust the health of Lamar right now to do 2. Now, if Lamar played every game since he came in the league, inserted himself in 2018 in the starting role, sure, I would carry 2 as the backup and deal with the 3rd for an emergency situation when need be. But no, this team's got to carry 3. Going back to last year, a little hazy on it, but I think they carried 3, or they might have carried 2 and put Designated on the practice squad and kind of elevate him to 53-man roster where needed. Because you remember when Lamar went down, Huntley was a starter and St. Brown got promoted to number 2 quarterback. Then Huntley went down and St. Brown actually started a game for us last year. I believe it was the Steelers game. Wasn't it the Steelers game that St. Brown started, or was it the Browns game?
I'm not positive. I'm not sure.
It was one. No, it was one of those games because he was in there. Because we almost won the game. But no, almost isn't a win. But I digress. But yeah, you got to carry 3 to answer your question and point. We got to talk about it. Got to carry 3 points, or not 3 quarterbacks. I should say not 3 points. But speaking of 3 points, the only starter that always just starts by default, the one and only GOAT, Justin Tucker, man. And there was the not that he needs practice, not that he needs it, but he's having fun out there. But this is why I alluded to 60 and beyond. The dude kicks a 60-yard field goal in a preseason game.
Like it was nothing.
I was like, we're like, it's good for 10. So, of course, he's at midfield doing this and having fun. And I posed the question to you, or I posed the question in the stands, first off. And we talked about it. And I'm going to pose a question to you. And I already know the answer because I got validation on it. But I was like, what would have happened if he kicked a field goal in preseason that was more than his record and he made it? Is that an NFL record? Does it count? The answer is no, it doesn't. But that would be unfortunate, right? Because we were talking about that 60. That's why I said 60 and beyond. What if he had hit a 60-yarder or beyond field goal and it was an NFL record or close to his record and it doesn't count? This is, I guess, like if somebody threw for like an insane amount of yards in the preseason games, they played the whole game or something crazy. And it's like, yeah, that's not an NFL record because the exhibition game. I get it, right? But stats don't count and they don't count towards anything. There's not even fantasy football for stats, but you can bet on these games. So it's pretty odd. But Tucker's out there having fun, doing his thing, kicked in 60-yarders. We noticed who was out there, though. Some of the rookies. And the one and only Zay Flowers. What do you think of his debut?
Zay Flowers, I mean, it was a limited debut, but I'm very happy that they had him on the field for this one. There was a lot of questions whether or not we would see Zay Flowers, and I think you had to put him in there at least for a drive or two, just so he'd get, a little bit of a taste for what the NFL is like compared to college. And I think it was a nice little starting set for him. I think he looked really well. I think Zay Flowers, knock on wood, stays healthy. Everything is good for him this season. I mean, this guy, I feels like he's going to light the world on fire. Let's see what happens in September, of course, but he's got the moves. He's fast. He's able to do it all. Everything he's being asked to do, he is doing. And I love what I'm seeing from Zay Flowers. It was very limited of what we saw, but what he was out there, man, he made the most of it. Every single inch, he made the most of it.
He did, man. What was pretty interesting is him out there on the first play of scrimmage, false start number 4. He was antsy. So I'm like, all right, forgive the mistake because the Ravens knew they wanted to go to him early on. Next play, screen pass, right to Zay Flowers. What do you think he does? Jukes the guy out of his mind. Like plants, jukes. He planted right, jukes left. The defender goes flying. We're all in awe. Here we go. No wonder he's called Joystick.
Yeah.
Loved it. This guy's going to be a problem.
For everybody else, not for us. That's the best part.
For everybody else, yes. Thank goodness. Very Lamar-esque. Just cut. And you saw it in the video in camp. When I showed it to you, I was like, see, he literally went this way and then this way. Like, doop, doop. And I'm like, yeah. And Peter King doing high praise and other media telling you. And that's national media. I think he's going to be Weapon X for the Ravens, man. It's going to be a big X factor coming in this year. And he's rookie, don't know what he's going to bring, but you're going to see the talent and the skill sets emerging often. Another observation I saw, big drop off from second quarterback on back. Oddly enough, or interesting enough, just to say oddly enough. I don't know where I got that. Huntley didn't start this game. It was Josh Johnson.
That's right.
And I was like, And then it got me to thinking, when I saw that, I was like, so are they going to hold both Lamar and Huntley out for the preseason? Because, of course, Harbaugh, no one tips their hand. He didn't know. No one knew who was playing. I know it's preseason, but still, you want the team to perform. I'm not saying, okay, win all these games in a row, preseason games, and go out and beat them 30-0. But it was pathetic in the first half. The Ravens there's 30 minutes of ball game and a half, right? The Ravens had a little over 5 minutes of possession time. Dominated, not in their favor in the time of possession. The offense only ran 14 plays. Okay. Huntley gets out there starting the second half. I was like, ooh, what do they do? Right down the field. And it's night and day difference. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he alluded to it. He's like, you can definitely tell Huntley's comfortable, and you can definitely tell he's the backup. He's been here a while, so he's comfortable with the offense. And I said, not only he's comfortable with the offense, he's running things efficiently with a new coordinator. So that's an observation. There is a clear distinction between number 2 and the rest. There's a big gap. We already know there's Lamar, and then there's a drop-off between your first and second quarterback. Some people might want to get on the airways and argue about it to the teeth. No. Tyler Huntley is not a starter in the NFL. He's a formidable backup in case a starter goes down. Let's call it what it is, because obviously if he was a starter, he wouldn't have won us a playoff game last year. Huntley's not a starter, in my opinion, and nor should he be. He's a formidable backup. But that was the observation, because then St. Brown entered the fourth quarter phase because Huntley started the third. They gave Josh Johnson a whole first half of work. And then St. Brown threw that pick six, right? That ultimately could have ended the game, but luckily the Eagles and Sirianni went for two to not end this game in a tie, which would have been interesting because then, hey, Ravens' perfect record still would have been attacked because it wasn't a technical loss. Because I don't even think there's overtime in preseason, right? I think it just ends in a tie. I don't even know if there's ties in preseason or if it's ever happened. But the Eagles wanted to win it right then and there. The pick six, the Ravens were up 7 at the time, obviously 20-13, and the pick six ended up being 19-20, missed 2-point conversion, as we know, was the final. So again, there's the quarterback position that I certainly want, but I think me and you deferred. I think you wanted to focus on the offensive line. If I remember, my memory serves correctly from the last show when we were talking about what positions, I was more on the secondary.
Well, you were worried about the special teams. You wanted to know who's going to be doing.
Oh, that's right, the kick returners.
Right.
Yes, and then the secondary was second. You were more concerned about the offensive line, right?
Right.
Given that, what were your observations on the offensive line? What did you say? Were you vindicated? Were you concerned? Are you happy?
I'm happy that we got to see Salah out there and doing his thing. He's been the rookie 6th rounder that potentially could be on the left guard. I think he had a kind of an uneven game. Again, first time NFL player. He's a 6th rounder. I didn't expect his game to be perfect. He did suffer a couple penalties, but that's what preseason is for. I definitely still think that there is going to be a battle between him and Simpson moving forward of who is actually going to get that spot. Unfortunately, though, it seems as if a guy who is on the outs probably will not make this 53-man roster is big country Ben Cleveland. Big country.
You don't say.
Big country looked terrible in this game, and this
big country looked big terrible. What happened? What happened?
I want you to tell me that. Ben Cleveland came in a couple years ago. He's this big guy. Everybody was loving him. He was telling everybody how he eats squirrel and stuff like that. And we saw him at AEW with Coach Harbaugh and Marlon Humphrey a year or two ago. Like, this guy was supposed to be the next great big lineman, and he's running the risk of not being there. I mean, there's this left guard spot open right now, and you have a rookie 6th rounder beating you out for that spot. I mean, there's potential. Like, he didn't even get any plays at left guard at all. He was on the right side, but in some of these highlight clips, it's highlight for the other team because Ben Cleveland just got run over.
Ben Cleveland was on the right side, and he literally just got pushed off, swam move right around, and Johnson was running to his right out of the pocket and led to an incomplete pass. Yeah, barely even blocked the guy. As soon as, he didn't really do nothing. Just, it's almost like Ben wasn't there. Big concern. They showed on the video board. I didn't see it live. I mean, obviously the play happened in front of me live, but it wasn't my first observation. But when they showed the video replay in the stadium, I kind of caught it. And I was like, did 66 just get beat? And I'm like, oh. And then, of course, luckily I found the highlight online. That was true. That is a big concern, man. So that is something to monitor heading into the Washington game this weekend, how that offensive line is shaping up, because that's going to be a problem because we do not want that to happen in a regular season game. Lamar and company running for his life. Again, that's going to set the tone for any disaster. I don't care. I don't care who you got at coordinator. I don't care what weapons you have. You can't pass block and allow Lamar or any quarterback have the time. Things are going to transpire in a very negative fashion with this offense. So got to clean up the line, big time. But who I thought really shown was Falele. He was great in the blocking scheme. So for what it's worth, watch out for that competition on the line. I really can't see how it transpires, man. I'm looking forward to it. In the trenches, it's where it starts and ends.
That's right. I will say wide receiver, it looks like, with Rashad Bateman coming back. Of course, we didn't see him in this game, but with him being back on the practice field, it looks like our first at least 3, maybe 4 with Nelson Aguilar in there as well. Wide receivers have been solidified, so there's still a spot or 2 open. I think Devin Duvernay looked really good, but a guy who's been a long-time Raven, James Prochet, he didn't look great. There's, again, potential of him not making this roster as well. So these jobs are getting snatched up, and Big Ben Cleveland and James Prochet, I think, will not be on this 53-man roster come September.
You don't think so?
I don't. What about you?
No. Certainly can agree with that statement, man. I don't think so. The fumble didn't help.
Mm-hmm.
You got to secure the ball first and foremost. What it's really telling is, and it's good telling, how deep the Ravens are at receiver this year.
A whole different story than last year.
Right. And there was jokes from the Ravens media members on the X app. I almost said Twitter. I got to get used to X. I like X. They pointed out that there's pretty much a strong competition for wide receiver 6, and Tylan Wallace is the leader. By the way, speaking of Duvernay and Wallace, breaking down those plays, what was impressive to me, not only the catches, but the passes. I don't think we've seen that from the Ravens offense, let alone receivers and quarterbacks, in a long time.
Yeah.
Let's take the most recent touchdown, Tylan Wallace. How about Huntley putting the ball where it needed to be? And if you saw the play, it was almost like designed. He was engaged with the corner, and then Wallace had to go over here, and the ball was already – it was like the ball was in the air, and then Wallace turned around and made his move and, snapped it, and he caught it out of thin air with his hands, not his body. Snatched it out of the air and secured it. And Devin Duvernay had almost probably a similar catch in the other end zone, earlier. They were trying to force feed the ball to Flowers. It wasn't working. He went to Duvernay on the other side, and Duve caught one. It was very similar to that, right? And that's something I noticed about that is where the ball was placed with these two quarterbacks, obviously, and the way. And just the way it was managed and the way the routes are run. And Duve, we know, had a great week 1 last year against the Jets with 2 touchdowns and debating with the third last year as we know it. That was impressive to me. Seeing crisp routes, the timing and execution. It wasn't like the receivers out there dropping wide open balls. How about Charlie Kohler getting in the mix in the tight end spot? He was out there making plays. How about Keaton Mitchell making a statement in the running game along with Justice Hill? In the run, I know there was a hole there that probably sprung him, but he still made an athletic move, and he had wheels. Penalty or not, that's a play to keep watch of. And what was even more telling, Keaton Mitchell's name comes up, and who steps on the practice field today for the Ravens? One and only Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. is back. And we're not J.K.ing at all.
What a coincidence, don't you think? Yeah. What a coincidence that this guy, Keaton Mitchell, undrafted guy, has a great game, and magically J.K. Dobbins feels better, and he's on the practice field. Is that just a coincidence there, or is something else going on?
Well, that's a big quinky dink. A big quinky dink. Yeah, dude, come on. Come on, who you playing? He was like, all right, I hear you guys. The running game's looking pretty good. Obviously, we didn't see Gus out there, didn't need to be. It was the Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and Melvin Gordon show. Good to see Melvin Gordon out there making a statement for himself, man. And the running game, it was all right. Again, Keaton Mitchell had a highlight. It was called back from penalty. It would have been the proverbial nail in the coffin. And the game, the Ravens still closed it out. However, I thought the running game was fine.
Running game looked good.
Yeah, it wasn't like these guys were get stuffed at the line. I'm like, all right, guys. I had no overall. Yeah, you wanted to do better, but I have no issues with the offense right now. Other than we know the line's the weak spot, right? I have no issues. And St. Brown, he's probably right now. I would say maybe. I say right now he's probably the 4th quarterback on the depth chart. Josh Johnson might make a case for the 3rd spot. That's the way I see it. Defensively, let's turn over that side of the ball. Defensively.
Well, before you do that, hold on 1 second.
I'm getting ahead of you, huh?
I do want to say this. So we just talking a little bit about J.K. Dobbins coming back onto the field. I do want to spotlight a good friend of the show, Wes. He wrote on our Facebook page, "Be glad to see J.K. back, though. We're definitely a better team with him than without him, even though I think the running game would have been fine without him. Got a lot of catching up to do. Wonder if they'll have him play in the preseason game to get some work in. So I got to ask you, with that game against the Commanders coming up on Monday, a full week away, on Monday night of next week, do you think, given J.K. Dobbins sitting out, not being a part of minicamp, not being a part of training camp yet, and his history of getting hurt against the Commanders in the preseason, is there any chance that we might see J.K. Dobbins on the field Monday night against the Commanders?
To answer Wes's point, by the way, Wes, thanks for chiming in. Great question. We love the interaction. Great points. Yes, I firmly believe we will see J.K. out there. You have to be. Now, I might be totally wrong because remember, J.K. got hurt in the very same game against the same team 2 years ago. Preseason game, he went down 21. So do you do that again? I would imagine they have to give him a little bit of work. What's the harm? Again, you know the Ravens manager with these things. They're always playing careful than not. Given the track record, again, might not be out there. I think he should. If you're going to make a name for yourself, case for yourself, got to get out there and knock the rust off a little bit. Look, I'm also glad he's back. I think it's, like I said, it's coincidence, right? Timing. Okay. Like running game looked decent. Okay. Not world beaters, but okay, now JK's back. Glad to see him back. Activate off the pup list right now. The Ravens have nobody on that list. I think they got to get him a little bit of game action to get him some work in. To the point of JK, I like to see him get some work. If he doesn't get the work, I'll be a little disappointed. But again, remember, take it for what it was. He got hurt in the preseason game that year. And then, of course, Gus Edwards and Peters got hurt in training camp that same year. That was a crazy year. We don't want to repeat that. But look, and that was the point back then 2 years ago when Dobbins went down in the preseason game and then the other guys went down in training camp. I'm like, the other guys got hurt in camp and you don't say nothing about that? Whether they play him in a preseason game or training camp, these guys got hurt regardless. So I just don't want JK to line up against Houston Texans. I don't want, and we talked about it last night, some of the fans in the stands, man. I wish the Ravens would give the starters some work because I don't want the first time they line up against a rookie quarterback at home on defense or come out. I don't want to come out flat. I still believe the downfall of the 2019 squad in the divisional round of the Titans game when they had the number 1 overall seed is they rested for 3 weeks. I think that hurt them. It's all about momentum, right? I got really upset at that, and I don't know. I just think that you got to give these guys some work. Stop it with the injuries and putting people, but things are going to happen, dude. I mean, hurt my finger playing golf. Look, I mean, things happen. You're going to get injured no matter what. Like, just come on. Like,
are you not holding the club correctly? How did you hurt your finger in golf?
Don't ask. I'll tell you off the air. It's embarrassing. I'll tell you off the air.
I've been golfing once. I did not get injured, but I also barely hit the ball. So.
Again, by the way, you're going again.
You think? You think so?
Yeah, you're going again. You're going again. Wes, we appreciate that. And, I'm certainly looking forward to see who they deploy against Washington. But before we even get to that, defensive side of the ball, notice that David Ojabo was out there for the defense on Saturday night.
He was, yeah, absolutely. He's a guy we've been talking about all training camp. He didn't look perfect, but again, he played just 1 or 2 games last year. I probably would still say this is his rookie season, so still got to get used to the NFL, still needs to do all that. I'm glad he was out there because I think this is going to help him in the long run.
Well, it is, and I certainly wanted to go put on my coach's hat for a minute and said, I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be consistent.
Right.
Go out there, just do your job, man. Motor out, ball out, show us what you can do. But it's good to see him out there. And that's something I observed, especially when the offense and defense took the field for the first time, who was out there and who wasn't. And right away, 2 names I already said. See, Flowers, I noticed immediately for the Ravens, and David Ojabo noticed immediately for the Ravens on defense there. So, but I will point this out. We already know the offensive line for the Ravens is going to be a problem and issue going forward, yet to be determined, a lot to be sorted out there. Apart from my focal point of the kick and punt return duties, it was a little hodgepodge of everybody. I think Keith Mitchell got involved in it at some point. Justice Silva was out there. I can't wait to see what happens against Washington, so I'm going to put a pin in that, but I will say this. The secondary that I saw, I was not pleased with, especially with Mike McDonald and some of his coverages. It was a third and long third and long for the Eagles. They converted in a soft zone first down right over the middle of the field. That remains the weakest spot in this defense. Now, I know the whole full starting squad wasn't out there, but it is an issue that it continues to get under my skin, and boy, does Brandon Stevens look horrible.
I was gonna. Oh, so all right. So this is good. This is a good conversation to have.
Oh,
Brandon Stevens, while I will say did not have a great game, I don't want him to be one of the starting cornerbacks or anything like that. This guy kind of sounds or looks like a Swiss Army knife a little bit in the fact that he can kind of play in all these different places. While I don't think it just based on what we saw on Saturday would guarantee him a spot on the 53-man roster, we're at a point right now where there are so many guys missing that just the fact that this guy is versatile and can play different spots, there's a good chance we're going to see him on opening night.
you think so?
I do. I think he'll be a part of this just for the sheer fact that he can bounce all over the field and play in different spots. And
What, special teams maybe?
Maybe, absolutely.
Okay.
Because that cornerback position is just annihilated right now. They just needed bodies to play, and there's guys even today getting hurt at the cornerback position. So I think maybe just out of necessity, we're going to see Brandon Stevens out on the field.
More than likely, but they did add some reserves today.
Mm-hmm.
They added some depth. Cornerback Trey Hayes was claimed by the Ravens today, so he's a former Panther. I do have some notes about this guy. Ready?
Let's hear him. Let's do it.
He's a champion. He is a champion right now. He was formerly a Lion. He was waived by the Lions. He's played 13 games, but he just came from, you could probably call it the minor leagues of the NFL. Wasn't the XFL. He just came from the USFL and won the championship last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For this past season for the USFL. So take that for what you will. Championship pedigree. He's been there. He's got some playing time recently, and he's a corner, which we need more of. And look, we're set at safety. We're not talking about the secondary. Safety's fine.
Right.
I ain't worried about that. It's the coverages in the corners. And look, I'm not like going all scorched earth on Brandon Stevens, but some of the coverages, I'm just like, dude, come on, man. Like some of them, I just don't know if he's undersized or mismatched or what, but there were some coverages I'm just like, all you do is turn around. And it was like he was always a split second late. Like when the receiver stopped and turned around, like he was just like he didn't get beat like with a long pass. But the problem is like when the play was completed, he was there at least to corral the receiver or tackle the receiver, didn't let him go. But it just wasn't there for like pass defense or pass coverage. It was just like he was just there in the area. So when the receiver caught it, he was there to kind of stop the play, which is great, right? No extra yards after catch, no yak yards. But that's something of a note that I saw. And then I just wasn't overall impressed. And it just seemed like anytime the Eagles had something going on offense and it was a pass play, it just looked like 21 was in the mix.
Right.
Like every look, I'm like, there he is. Like just happened to be 21 that I saw. So, but again, live versus on TV, you're going to see what you're going to see. And I'm always seeing all kinds of different action. I'm looking every different direction sometimes. But from what I observed, it seemed to me 21 was, more of the problems than not. Doesn't mean that the whole secondary or somebody else had a bad day or bad situation. But just my observations, just from where my bird's eye view and where I was sitting. But we'll see. Let's see. Like Trey Hayes is here. We already know, with the subtraction with Marcus Peters not coming back, the corner was a problem and a little focal point that we needed to focus on there in the secondary because they were a little weak. Call it what it is. I mean, you got Marlon, but then it's like, where do you go from there? Because the safety position is set. You got Marcus Williams, got Kyle Hamilton. Can't wait to see what happens in the secondary, man, especially these corners. But we'll see what transpires heading into preseason week 2 against these Washington Commanders.
That's right. We got to wait all the way until Monday night to see that game. Unfortunately, they're making us wait a little extra long to see these Ravens versus the Commanders. Maybe we'll see a little bit of what they could match up with on during practice. They have Tuesday and Wednesday as a joint practice this week, so that'll be definitely one to pay attention to. So, Josh, before we get out of here, anything else we should cover in this preseason game before we move on?
If you're mentioning preseason game, certainly think we got it covered. I mean, I was just happy to see the Ravens victorious, and look, for what it's worth, someone's asked me, like, would you be disappointed streaking? Yeah, of course you'd be disappointed, but it'll be quickly forgotten. As soon as they get that first loss, it'll be something of note to talk about. Like, they lost preseason game, but then no one's going to ever talk about it because it's an exhibition. But the winning streak, and I will tell you this, though, it was actually, because we stayed to the bitter end, and it was actually, the streak has a little bit of, it gives you a little bit of like incentive, I guess, and a little bit of like rooting interest, because you're like I literally, like, now I'm saying I'd never care about the game, but literally I was like looking at the scoreboard and like, look, I was like definitely rooting for them to win. Like, I was like, they got to win. And then like some of my section mates, I should call them, they were echoing it. They said the streak's personal. Like, this is personal. We want that 24. And I'm like, it's just, let's keep this going as long as they can, right? Like, let's get to 25 and then 26 and then end the preseason at 26 and then see what happens next year, right? They can only continue it so much so every year. So let's keep it going. Right now, it's the unofficial NFL record. I mean, it is a record. They're keeping it. And I really joked and said, I bet you the next closest team is like 1 or 2 streak. Like, I don't think anybody's probably got more than 3. So I think, for terms, if you really want to call this a true unofficial record for what it's worth, I think this will probably never be broken. So it's pretty fun that the Ravens own something like this, and it's something to talk about. And I love it, like Adam Schefter before the game, like, for what it's worth, Ravens won 23 in a row of these things. And, it's, some people are going to shrug their shoulders. I'm like, who cares? Who gives anything? But, some people care. I mean, there's some Raven fan out there, they don't really care. They're like, who cares? It doesn't, it's exhibition. I'm like, okay. All right. Well, and like I alluded to, man, I talked to my friends about it. I'm like, we're all competitive. If there's a scoreboard, you're going to want to win it. There's a winner and a loser. You definitely want to be a winner. I don't care if it's money, bragging rights, or anything on the line. I mean, look, we play fantasy football every year amongst friends. We are highly competitive, my father included. So we get heated, man. It's intense. It's competition. It's fun, but it's what it's out there. And like, go win that scoreboard. Let's go win another one against Washington Commanders.
All right, so before we get out of here, we gotta discuss this. I know the show's kind of running long already, but we have to bring this up about a former Baltimore Raven.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We need to unpack this.
Michael Oher was in the news today, and honestly, really a tragic story, like a heartbreaking story. He is actually suing his, I don't even know what to call them at this point, his adopted family, because some documents have been uncovered, and it seems as if this family has kind of extorted money from Michael Oher and never actually adopted him. Like, that is, imagine your family and then your adopted family who said, oh, we're going to take care of you and we're going to take you in and everything, and then you're not actually adopted. Like, that is heartbreaking to find out, too, that it's due to the fact that they became like a conservative over him and were in charge of him and his money. And they did a movie, The Blind Side. Sandra Bullock won an Oscar from this movie about Michael Oher's life. And Michael Oher never got a dime from that. But the family that, quote unquote, adopted him made a couple $100,000 off of him and his likeness. Absolutely tragic story. We know that Michael Oher is suing his former family over this. I don't, at least at last time I looked, the Tui family has not released a statement or anything. If something else has come out, please let me know. But honestly, this is a heartbreaking, a tragic, a very difficult story to read. I feel terrible for Michael Oher. I feel like he's been lied to his entire life. It really is just a tragic story.
Brother, man, I mean, it's an outpouring of emotion, right? The movie's one of my favorites. I always love watching it. I've always been proud of the story because he was drafted as a Baltimore Raven and he has ties. I actually have a picture signed by Michael Oher when he was a Baltimore Raven, and it was signed The Blind Side. So like
I have a Blind Side poster signed by Michael Oher.
Yeah, so I mean it's special, right?
I think they actually showed that movie. Remember, they do like the summer movie nights at the stadium. Yes. They showed The Blind Side a year or so after that came out. So I mean, this is like this movie and this story, which up until this point was a very feel-good story, was a huge part of the Ravens' history and Michael Oher's history. But this story takes a turn now, and this one hurts.
Hurts deeply. Now, I mean, that's my first initial thoughts. I read the article in its entirety. Obviously we socialized it on our Facebook page. My dad certainly shared it with me, and I went through and read it. Certainly there, again, a lot to unpack. Got to go through the courts. We only know what we know. Again, it's allegedly, right? Apparently, my first instinct was why, and again, this was before I read some of the facts in the article, so this isn't my thoughts now. But my first reaction when I heard that and saw the title was like, why wait all this time? Because that's what usually people do, right? It's if it bothered you and if it was a problem, why did you wait to come out? Like it's always like timing, right? Like very fishy, like just anything that happens, right? I'm always like that. Like I always think outside the box, and like if something doesn't make sense and it smells fishy, it is fishy. But then when you read about it, I think he didn't discover it till February of this year.
Right. Yeah.
So that was like, okay. So that I got off of that because I was like, all right, he didn't find out till this year.
Right. There have been some questions about money and everything, because as a conservatorship, this family took care of all of his financial businesses or whatever, and they still did up until this past year. So as he was trying to get out from underneath that conservatorship, they found this paperwork that showed that he was never actually adopted.
Yeah, and it basically it puts a black eye at this whole situation. It undoes the whole premise of the movie, right? And it really taints Sandra's award, for the movie. It taints everything. I will say this though. I hope everything comes to light and the truth is found out, and Mike gets what's rightfully owed and deserved to him. It's his story. Speaking of fan interaction, I certainly want to read this. One of our fans, Mike Miller, commented. I certainly want to read his comment because I want to address it too, and I'll certainly want to reply and let him know we addressed it on the show as well as Wes. Not to let their comment go unchecked, but he said that movie was ridiculous when they basically portrayed him, got him in bed. When they got him in bed, and he acted like he didn't know what a bed was, right? And it in his time was that is horrible. They scammed him like that. If I remember, the dad was supposed to be an executive at FedEx, and the fact that Michael was the only one not to make any money off the movie, even dumber than acting like he had no clue what a bed is. And that was kind of like, it brought me to think, thanks Mike for that comment, and brought me to think about that too, because when I was watching that movie, and I think or mentioned that, and I think it was mentioned in the article too about that how he was portrayed.
Right.
And that kind of got me thinking. I'm not saying no one was right or wrong. I'm not putting the blame on Michael himself. I'm not putting the blame on producer. I'm not putting the blame on anybody. But if Michael Oher himself knew, like, again, I got to read through the article if this was mentioned about the movie or not. So I'm looking for guidance if you even know. But I'm assuming Mike Oher himself was aware of how this movie was going to be portrayed by himself, or this movie was going to be portrayed about him, and he would have some say in that, because if that was the incorrect portrayal from Mike, I'm surprised if he wasn't involved in the movie anywhere, shape, or form. I'm really surprised at that, because if the movie is about you and your life, you should be involved. To hear Mike kind of talk about that, and he was kind of taken back by that, it was surprising to me, because it's like, it just seems to me he was in the dark about this whole thing. Like, were you not involved in the production and the portrayal of yourself in this movie? It didn't seem like it. Is that the case? I mean, I don't know. It just didn't seem like he was aware of that. But to Mike's point, Mike Miller, I should say, our fan. I've always noticed that every time I watched it, it's like, it just seemed to me it was a weird and distasteful portrayal of Mike. Like, given he was probably way more intelligent than that. Give him a little bit more credit. I mean, he's made a great life for himself. He's done something right, and it just to me, it always rubbed me the wrong way. Is where I'm getting at. It didn't sit right with me, even though it was a great movie and all that, and it was near dear to our hearts, and it was a great football movie. It just always bothered me that portrayal happened, and it is what it is, and I certainly side with Mike's opinion on that.
I remember when the movie came out, Michael Oher did come out and say, yeah, that movie took a lot of liberties, but that was for the movie's sake. They made me look like I had never played an ounce of football before, and I didn't understand how the game of football worked. But I very much understood football, and I had played it ever since I was a little kid. And he had a book come out. I think it was like The True Blind Side or The Real Blind Side or something like that. And it came out to kind of address some of the issues that he had with the movie. Now, I know he has a book coming out this week or last week as well, kind of to discuss a couple more things. But I remember even when the movie came out and everyone talked about it, how he was already like he was like, no, that's not exactly how it happened. So obviously this is something that has bothered Michael for a long, long time. And he investigated, why certain things happened. And when you do that, really terrible things like this come up with your family. I mean, when money gets involved, it's really sad, but all bets are off. Family, friends, whatever. When money's involved, it changes things.
But again, just hope everything comes light, full justice is served. It's all gets settled. But I just couldn't believe what Mike is even going through, right? To face them in court, and for the people that you would think that was your family, they were using you and your likeness and everything else. So you feel used and betrayed. So I certainly have empathy for him in that regard, and prayers to the whole situation. It all gets straightened out. And, you can't change the wounds of that past, right? But now let's just hope it just gets resolved and everybody just goes their separate ways and deals with it accordingly. But, with that being said, certainly, switching gears real quick to close out the show, as well as we always preview games, right? But I think in a nutshell, preview of this game coming up, very simple, right? It's Washington Commanders in Washington, preseason game number 2, recording earlier this week. So, for the most part, there is a clean bill of health for the Ravens. We know Rocky Sin dealt with an injury in training camp. He's still on the mend. Nothing to be threatening there. We know it from JK being removed off the PUP list. The Ravens have no active players on any PUP list right now. Still early enough to see what the game plan is, if Harbaugh is even going to play even more starters. I don't expect to. Again, we already talked about JK's situation. Hopefully we'll see him out there. Again, I think looking at this matchup, I'm going in all three phases right there. I still want to look at the line is number one, jobs in the line there, and look how that goes. Want to go again, look at kicking and punt returning duties, and then again go in secondary. I'm looking at the same three kind of positions right now. I don't want to change anything. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Receivers looked all right. I will say this though. Remiss going backwards. I'm going to go backwards a second to move forward. Is there were far too many false start penalties for the offensive line. They were getting a little ahead of themselves, a little antsy. I want to see the false starts cut down because they were shooting themselves in the foot too much. Especially, I know it wasn't a ruckus crowd and all that, but it's at home. Even if they're on the road, it's not going to be as ruckus. But again, stop it with the nonsense. Got to get that under control. They're drive killers. They're momentum killers. You just can't. And again, 5 yards is 5 yards, but when the team struggles sometimes to get 5 yards, it changes the dynamic of play calling. It changes the dynamic of momentum and where you're at. 1st and 10, going to 1st and 15, or if you're at, you're 2nd and 3, or even if you're 3rd and 3 and you get a false start, now you're 3rd and 8, that changes the playbook, right? Then it could change the play. You miss it and going 4th down and punt. These things got to stop. So they need to cut down a little mistakes, but they're rusty. Want to get that, and that's something that I want to see them improve on coming in preseason game week 2. Certainly rooting and hoping for a Ravens victory. Why not, right? Keep the streak alive to 25. But we'll see if they emerge victorious and win the scoreboard. But first and foremost, win the clean bill of health for both teams involved. And let's hope we can evaluate some more of these players before the wave of cuts start.
Absolutely. We got a week until we got to wait for the Ravens versus Commanders. A lot can change within that week, but keep doing what you're doing, Ravens. Let's get a win on next Monday, and let's solidify this team. Let's make this the best 53-man roster that the Ravens absolutely can. We want everybody to be top bill of health. We want all the top talent showing off, making sure that they're hungry. They want to be a part of this team, and that's what we want to see. So, Josh, have we covered everything for this episode of The Call?
Well, the Raven never mow.
All right, everybody. Well, if you would like to continue the conversation with Josh or I, you can. It's real easy. All you have to do is join our Discord, discord.gg/thecallpodcast. Make sure you join our server there, have some tailgate talk, some game day chat, all that good stuff. Tell us what's going on, what you think of the Baltimore Ravens. You can join our Discord, discord.gg/thecallpodcast. Now, we do this show for free. You listen, stream, and download for free on all of your favorite podcast platforms, especially Overcast. All we ask in return is for you to please spread the word about the show. Write us an Apple Podcast review, rate us over on Spotify, and then be social with the show. Let people know on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Pinterest and Instagram and Reddit and Snapchat and Twitch and TikTok and Hive and anywhere you're social on the web.
And Y and Z.
X.
Yeah.
X and Threads. Are you on Threads? Did you start a thread?
I thought threads were I don't even know anymore. They create new ones now. I don't even know what threads are. I don't do InstaFace or Snap, or was it Snapface or Snapbook, as Bill Belichick said. He mixed them up. I always loved that. I got to find that quote. That was great. But no, I don't do any of those things anymore. I stick to my main hitters, and I don't venture in the MeWe's and everything else.
Yeah. Well, we're all over the place, but please join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/thecallpodcast. Like us over there. You can listen to the show directly on our Facebook page if you so do decide to. And, you know, we're trying to open up an Instagram account. I'm not going to say exactly the name right now. We are trying to open it up. We're going to put some of our reels up there. I should point this out. We did start up a brand new YouTube page. I forgot to bring this up earlier. I want everybody to know this. Brando Cash Pods on YouTube. You will follow us there. We will be putting out all of our shows on YouTube, all of our shorts on YouTube, and you can also check out my other podcast, What the Puck, when Capitals hockey season starts. So you can find all of our new shows and our shorts over on our YouTube as well as our Facebook page. So that is pretty much it. Make sure you subscribe, comment on the YouTube page, share the YouTube page as well. We want to make sure everybody can get everything there. If YouTube turns out to be something really cool, maybe Josh and I do some live videos on YouTube. Well, we got lots of things in the cooker right now for this year, so make sure you check us in the cooker. So we're over on YouTube at Brando Cash Pods. So that is pretty much it for the show this week. Josh, take us out the way you always do.
Brandon, man, thank you so very much, and I'm looking forward to another installment of Raven Streak Preseason edition. Rooting for the team hard. Hey, why not, right? Let's keep the streak alive. It's fun. And hey, if there's a scoreboard out there, let's go win it. Let's go beat the Commanders. And then we just wish the team, again, always a clean bill of health and these jobs on the line who will emerge. We always appreciate the feedback. Love talking Ravens football with y'all. The Call faithful, with that being said, all the way to Monday night football, preseason style, down in Landover, Maryland. Yes, we still stay in state for this one. So are they really another? I mean, we had DC, but Landover, Maryland, we get it. I always call it Maryland B Squad. We get it, right? Let's go take it to the B Squad. Battle of the Bellies, B Squad, A Squad versus B Squad. How about it? But hey, as the Eagles fans like to call us the Tweety Birds, the Tweety Birds are going to go down south and tussle with the Commanders. So with that being said, Baltimore Ravens into preseason week number 2. How about it? Let's fly high.
Hey, everybody. Josh and I were closing off the show and we were finished, and we were hanging up our headphones, and we checked our phones and we saw some really unfortunate news come across our X Twitter feeds. And unfortunately, it seems as if Alex Collins, former running back for the Baltimore Ravens, has passed away unfortunately. He was only 28 years old. Really, absolutely tragic passing here. Guy, he had a ton of talent. He worked so well with the Ravens. He was with the UCFL most recently, but really just sad news coming in as we hear that Alex Collins, former Baltimore Raven, has passed away today. Josh, I mean, we never ever want to hear news like this, but unfortunately it's stuff that we've been covering now on the call. Just, recently this summer, it was Alex Collins and Ryan Mallett both passed away. Last year it was Tony Saragusa and Sack Daddy, who passed away, unfortunately, quite suddenly as well. But really, just you'd never want to report on this kind of stuff. But it's really sad news that we're reading right now.
Yeah, it certainly is, man. Especially at a younger age, man. We get that death is a part of life, but we get it that it's when the journey runs itself and you've lived a full life. Again, you don't want anybody taken from you, family, friends, but we get it, right? It's something, we're not immortal, and there is a day and time for that. But given the young Alex Collins, he didn't even see age 30. I feel for his family. I feel for his friends. I feel for everybody, man, around him, his former teammates. Lost a good one way, way, way too soon. Very hurtful. My heart and condolences go out to friends and family, man. Certainly say prayers for them. Just tragic news. And we extend our thoughts and prayers and condolences from the call out to the Collins family and all of his friends too as well. Man, it's just so tragic, man. So tragic. Never like to hear that. So young, man. Wow. Unfortunate.
Yeah, it's this is so unfortunate. It for everybody. I mean, his family. We definitely send our thoughts and our prayers to Alex Collins' family, to all of his fans around the world. If you remember, he would dance an Irish jig after he got a touchdown. The NFL kind of put a spotlight on that as well. The guy seemed so full of life, and he seemed like he was working hard to be in the NFL. Absolutely tragic. Not even 30 years old yet, and he's no longer with us. So we are very sorry for everybody out there, and we're going to take the next 10 seconds or so, and whatever you believe in, whether you want to send out some good thoughts, a prayer, good vibes, whatever you believe in. Let's take the next couple seconds here and just send our thoughts and prayers and everything else out to the Collins family and to the whole Ravens flock and everyone. What a tragic passing. Alex Collins, only 28 years old.